PowerColor are branching out. First we had the ALFin AH10 wireless headset that I looked at around a month ago. Now we have a mouse or a pair of mice, the ALFin AM10 wireless. The question I posed at the start of my review of the headset still stands. Can a company known for their graphics cards make a decent peripheral? Let's have a look at the AM10 and find out. Hi guys, I'm Matt and welcome to Kit Guru. I'll start with the design then. Right off the bat, this mouse reminds me of a G502 or a Basilisk, which I'm all for, to be honest. While symmetrical, mega lightweight mice have their place in the market, it's nice to see the AM10 catering more to people who like an ergonomic and a sculpted shell. The shape is clearly for right-handers only. The shell slopes off towards the right-hand side while having a pronounced thumb rest on the left. There are 6 buttons in total, a standard setup of left and right click, scroll wheel and a pair of side buttons, and then you've got a DPI switch just behind that scroll wheel alongside the normal sort of buttons. For colour options, you've got both black and white, both coated in a very slightly textured plastic, which offers a modest amount of grip, but I can't help feeling that it could do with a little bit of rubber where your thumb sits on the side of the mouse. The side and DPI buttons, as well as a strip running around the side of the mouse and the mouse wheel, are shiny plastic, whereas the rest is a kind of matte finish. It offers a nice bit of contrast between the matte and the shiny finishes. There's a small PowerColor logo on the rear end of the mouse. I like seeing subtle branding, and I think PowerColor have done a good job of keeping the tackiness to a minimum on the AM10. It's not a small mouse, measuring 44mm high by 75mm wide and 126mm long, and it's also not the lightest mouse we've ever seen, weighing 96 grams, and that isn't a bad thing, as some people prefer a bit more heft to their peripherals. The weight is quite well balanced as well on the AM10. It doesn't feel particularly front or back end heavy. Looking at the bottom of the mouse, you'll find the connectivity toggle switch and pairing button, as well as the PTFE Teflon skates, which I'll talk more about how they perform a little bit later in the video. The AM10 has RGB in 3 different areas. There's a small strip near the PowerColor logo. The mouse wheel lights up, and then there are 2 kind of headlight style sections on the front of the mouse. The RGB effects transition between colours quite smoothly, and while I do think PowerColor have implemented the lighting in quite a tasteful way, on the flip side, it's pretty pointless and it will be taking some extra power from the battery just to run those lights. Overall, I think PowerColor have done a good job with the design of the AM10. It follows a tried and tested shape, which, while it may not suit any hardcore FPS gamers out there, there are a lot of people that will appreciate a shape like this, especially if your hands are on the larger side. The RGB will appeal to some and not to others, and that's okay. Variety is the spice of life after all. In terms of hardware, the AM10 wireless contains a Pixar PAW3395 sensor, which is capable of up to 26,000 DPI and can handle up to 50 Gs of acceleration and up to 650 IPS of tracking speed. The left and right click buttons use Omron optical switches, which are rated for up to 70 million clicks, and they feel nice and tactile when you click them down. Polling rate on the AM10 maxes out at 1000 Hz when using the 2.4 GHz wireless connection, and then 8000 Hz when you use the mouse connected with the cable. And speaking of connectivity, the AM10 has 3 options to choose from. That 2.4 GHz and wired, as I mentioned, and then you've got Bluetooth alongside that. And they include a 1.8 meter braided cable for using the mouse wired in the box. I've been using the AM10 using mostly the 2.4 GHz and wired connections, and I haven't had any connection issues at all. The mouse wakes up from standby quickly and is ready to go whenever you need it. The Bluetooth is there as an option, but it's not something that I'd ever personally use or recommend you to use for gaming. The AM10 has tracked flawlessly on my SkyPad 3.0, which is a glass mouse pad, and I've never had any sensor skipping or spin outs while playing shooters like Escape from Tarkov and Battlefield 2042. The skates as well, they're holding up quite well. Glass pads can tend to wear them rather quickly, but they still look as good as new after my 2 to 3-ish weeks of testing. Glide and the skate coverage itself is good. There's no scratchiness as there sometimes can be when using mice on glass, and it slides around with ease on both a standard cloth pad as well as that sky pad. Battery life has been pretty impressive. PowerColor claim up to 50 hours in the specs, and in reality that seems to be about right. I've only charged the mouse twice during about that 2 to 3 week period of testing it out, so I've got nothing to grumble about in regards to battery life. Talking about build quality then, and overall the structural build quality of the mouse is okay, but the AM10 does have a slight hollowness that doesn't feel as premium as some other mice that I've looked at, like the Viper V3 Pro. But then again, the Viper is more expensive, so it's kind of a case of you get what you pay for, as with most things. The left and right click buttons do have a slightly noticeable amount of pre and post travel. The clicks themselves, as I mentioned earlier, do feel quite tactile and satisfying, but not as solid or as instant as I would like. The side buttons also have a bit of sponginess to them, as does the scroll wheel that has a very slight left to right movement to it. It doesn't feel quite as secure as I'd like. The AM10, it doesn't feel terribly bad, but it doesn't feel as well built as I'd kind of hoped when I first got it out of the box. Customising the AM10 is done with the same software as we saw with the AH10 headset from PowerColor, and it's called Keystone. There are a few more options to play around with when you compare it to the headset though. First off, up in the top left corner, you've got the ability to set up 5 different profiles. Then for each profile, you have 3 tabs. Customisation allows you to change button mapping for every button apart from the left click. Then you've got performance. That's where you're going to head to change stuff relating to the sensitivity steps that can be cycled through with the DPI button. Funnily though, you can't turn the different stepping off, which is something I usually do, as I always run 1600 DPI and then I adjust my sensitivity in the various games that I play. I hope PowerColor can add that in a future update. Let us run one sensitivity and turn that cycling off. It kind of makes the button redundant, but that's the way I personally like to use my mice. You can change the lift off distance as well as calibrate the sensor to work on whatever surface you're using it on. Then you can adjust polling rates for the wired and 2.4 GHz connections independently. Again, they max out at 1K for wireless and 8K for wired. And then finally, you can adjust a few power settings like low power or eco mode as they call it, and then the sleep settings, as well as changing the levels at which the power indication LED will change colour. And then lastly, the colour tab allows you to change the RGB settings for the AM10. There are 8 presets to choose from in total. Overall, the software and customization is much more in depth than when I took a look at that AH10 headset, but it still feels a little bit rough around the edges and like it needs a bit more polish. It's definitely a step in the right direction when compared to the last time I looked at it though, so things are heading in the right direction, which I love to see. Finally, before we wrap things up then, the pricing. Picking up an AM10 in either black or white here in the UK will set you back £100, which does put it up against some tough competition from the likes of Corsair, Razer, Glorious, and a lot of the other mice that we've looked at on the channel in the past. To summarise then, I'm going to end this in a similar vein as I did to the AH10 PowerColor headset that I reviewed recently. I think for entry into a new product category, this is a good start from PowerColor. I like the shape, it's been comfortable to use, I like the ergonomic design, and I don't have much to grumble about. There are a few things that I'd like to see improved on a potential version 2 of the AM10 though. Ditch the RGB altogether. I know some people like it, myself included at times, but I think on wireless peripherals it's just not needed and it takes away valuable battery life. And then I would like to see a few other things improved, like the pre and post travel on the left and right click and the sponginess of the side buttons. If they could get the tolerances improved on that and make them feel a bit more responsive and a bit more solid, I think it would serve this mouse well in the future and serve PowerColor as a brand well in the future. Anyway guys, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like down below if you did. Don't forget to subscribe to Kit Guru to keep up with the latest PC gaming news and reviews. And if you go down below the video, you'll find links to our merch store where you can pick yourself up some Kit Guru merch. And then in the video's description, finally, you'll find links to our Discord server, our Patreon page, and our website if you want to check any of that stuff out. Anyway guys, I've been Matt. these have been the AM10 wireless gaming mice from PowerColor. I will speak to you in the next one. Look after yourselves. See you later.